Part 3, The Merchandise and the Miracle. Oh, Anne has such hope. For the first time in ages, she suddenly feels wonderful. Uh-oh, but in the present, Anne does not feel so wonderful. Maximilian Bouchard quickly opened the door to his luxurious penthouse as Anne ran in past him sick. He pointed in the direction of the bathroom, hoping she would make it and not sneak a vomit on his custom-woven Persian. "It's the door at the end of the hall, my dear." Max rolled his eyes as he heard Anne puking. "So much for our endless night of sensual pleasures." But back in the past, in the Duke's chambers, the Duke's face is turning beet red. His eyes are bulging. He takes a moment, regains control, puts on a smile, and turns to Anne. "So, my little bird loves another. That, then, is why you've turned me out of your bedchamber night after night for, lo, these many long weeks." Anne says nothing, but only nods, afraid. The Duke paces. The tension is thick. "My darling Anne, let me tell you how greatly I admire your fidelity to this young man, your faithfulness of heart." Anne smiles weakly, seeing that perhaps he will be gallant. The Duke laughs bitterly. "Oh, a stable boy. My dear wife's love belongs to a servant. All my wealth and power could not win your affections, but the wild and wily ways of a mere stable boy have captured your heart. How touching!" Anne studies him, wondering what he is thinking. "My lord, I wish—" But the Duc d'Orléans just smiles at his wife. "We shall arrange for you to sail to him immediately. You have said that you will never love me, that you dream day and night of being by his side. Go to him, then." "Oh, my lord, I never imagined—" "That I would be so understanding? But, my darling, haven't I always said that all I want in this life is your happiness? Can you be ready to sail by tomorrow?" Anne puts her hand to her chest, stammering and smiling. "Well, yes, of course. I'll tell Jane." No, don't take Jane. I understand she is not well. Travel would not be good. No, Jane shall stay here with me. Stephen shall go along with you instead. He's always expendable." Anne whirls around, then kisses the Duke on the cheek. "Oh, I am so happy. I'll be with him again soon. You are so kind." As back in the present, Anne was passing out on Max's bed. She rambled drunkenly. "Oh, I'm so sorry I'm sick and I ruined our date." Max smiled, a not very benign smile. "Don't worry. I'll watch over you, my pet." And indeed so the Duke would watch over Anne. Oh, perhaps he had to let her out of his sight for a brief moment, but always, everywhere, one of his spies would be near to her, watching her, reporting everything back to the Duke as his evil plot unfolded. Anne gives her husband, the Duke, a friendly embrace and says her last goodbyes. The Duke waves to her, holding a perfumed hanky of his own, and then, as soon as the moat drawbridge is up and the doors slammed, the Duke's jealous fury comes out. He bellows for one of his henchmen, then quickly scrawls a letter. "Take this letter to this address now, and when he arrives here, send him to me immediately. No, stop, wait, I'm not done yet. Arrange to have her father murdered and that groom framed. Make it look like a robbery. And it must happen before Anne arrives in England." The Duke grins wickedly and twists his moustache. "I'll teach that little bitch in heat to hate him. Then she'll have no place to go except home to me, where she belongs." As back in the present, our wicked Duke— oh, did I say Duke? I meant Maximilian— was no less evil, no less manipulative. Poor dear drunk Anne had passed out, and Max was holding a video camera, a devilish smile on his face. He reached down and unbuttoned her dress, then started filming. "Oh, this is just like Christmas." He stripped her limp body. She was out cold. "My dear, you are one built wench, and I have plenty of videotape. We are going to have a long, wonderful night together." And suddenly it was morning. Anne opened her eyes, then sat up quickly. She groaned from sitting up so fast. Max, awake and dressed, hurried from the next room and sat down next to her. Hangover? No, thank you, whatever that is. I don't want it. I feel deathly ill. Wait. Oh, no. Did we? Max chuckled and brushed her hair away from her face. We did not. You passed out and slept for 10 hours. Oh, my poor dear Michael. He must be frantic. I have to go. No, I want you to stay for breakfast. Give him a call. No, I must go to him now. Meanwhile, back at Mike's apartment, Lancelot was up first, and he took it upon himself to wake Mike, who was snoring over his computer. Mike looked at the bed. Empty. He searched the apartment frantically. Anne, where are you? Are you home yet? He plopped on the sofa, shaking his head. Cripes, this is nuts. Here I am pacing like a worried dad because the heroine of my novel spent the night with my boss. I mean, this is so weird. She's not even real. But she must be real. Mike padded to the door, got the morning paper, still talking to himself. See, Max called from his limo and said she was sitting next to him, and Max isn't crazy, but she can't be real. And Mike looked at the paper and beamed when he saw his Crenshaw interview on the front page. Oh, right. He skimmed it, and the wild words that Silas Crenshaw had said to him, they were all there. When the story is better than your own life, that's when the characters come alive, my boy. Suddenly, Mike threw down the paper. Wait, Silas! This all started after I saw him. Maybe it's no accident that he looked like the witch in the story. Maybe Polonius was right. There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Mike grabbed his jacket and headed out the door. He'd bolted down the stairs to the parking lot, jumped in his car, and was gone, and he just missed by seconds a limo pulling up in front of Mike's apartment. Anne hurried up the steps, Max following. She knocked. No, he's not here. Max, I wonder if he was angry at... Max watched her, hiding his jealousy. You don't have a key? He didn't even leave a note? And then Max gently took Anne's hands in his. I'll tell you what I think, my darling. I think your cousin treats you lousy. He kicks you out so he can be alone with a woman, doesn't mind that you spent the evening with another man, then he locks you out. Listen, my pet, I have to go to a funeral today. I didn't know the wretch personally, but I'm expected to go. Anyway, I know it doesn't sound like fun, but I was wondering if you could accompany me. Then, after the funeral... Anne? He saw she was not listening. Of course, Max. Of course I'll accompany you. Where else have I to go? Wonderful! But then after that I will take you any place at all your little heart desires. How about 1686? Pardon? Nothing. Nothing at all. She hurried down the stairs, Max following. Meanwhile, Mike had made a beeline for Silas Crenshaw's cabin. Still disheveled and disoriented without his coffee, he knocked at the door of the old shack. A tired-looking old black woman in a faded dress answered. Mike was startled. He didn't know that Silas was... Oh, hello. Is Silas in? I need to see him right away. It's sort of an emergency. Well, you're going to have to wait a long time, honey. Silas is dead. What? But I was just here. She wiped her hands on a dish rag. Yesterday. Sitting in his rocking chair. Oh, God. Let me offer my condolences, ma'am. Are you a relative? Sister. Getting ready to go to the funeral. You want to come? Are you a friend? Well, no, we just... Yes, I was a friend. Mike McClure. Suddenly the old woman smiled, reached in her pocket, and pulled out an envelope. So you're Mike. We was all wondering. He left this for you. Mike ripped it open. Inside was a piece of paper with a message scrawled in purple crayon. She's real, boy. Gift to you from your muse for your prose music. Mike stared at the paper, unbelieving. The cemetery. A thunderstorm. Hundreds had turned out to pay their last respects to Silas Crenshaw. Mike stood on the periphery, clutching that bizarre message, more confused than ever. In the distance, but commanding attention, was the swarthy man from the disco the night before, his entourage surrounding him, all holding umbrellas over his head. Finally, the services ended and soggy people hurried to their cars. The crowd thinned, and Mike's eyes widened when he saw Max with Anne. He ran to her and they embraced. "Oh, Anne, I was so worried and confused." Maximilian was seething with jealousy. "Good morning, Buzz. Your cousin is just fine, surely. You just your own boss. I took her out on the town, and she was reluctant to return to your place lest she interrupt you and your lady friend." But suddenly Max was distracted by the swarthy man in the regal-looking caftans who was standing nearby, gesturing insistently for Max to come over. Max smiled curtly at Mike. "You will excuse me a moment." The swarthy man got in his limo and Max followed, saying something to his own chauffeur as he did. Inside the limo, Max unleashed his extreme annoyance. "What the hell is so urgent?" The swarthy man smiled, his incisors sharp like fangs. "I am sorry, but I must fly back sooner than I thought. An unavoidable emergency." "Damn," said Max. "That's really pushing it, you know." There was a knock on the limo door. Max's chauffeur. "You wanted your briefcase, sir?" Max took it, and the divider went up. Max and Khalil were alone. Max opened his briefcase. It was filled with videotapes and a large manila envelope. But Khalil was staring at Anne, who was outside talking with Mike. Khalil jabbed Max and pointed. "That one. Her. That is the one I want." Max ignored him. "Okay, here's a few flicks on the house if you take the merchandise. There's a dozen girls, only the best. Most of them are willing, depending on how high they are." "But I tell you, that is the one I want. Her." "Oh, no. That one's all mine, old boy." Khalil was drooling. "She is the most beautiful creature I have ever seen. Skin as pale as the moon, lips the color of pomegranates." Max smiled proudly. "Special, isn't she? I've seen 1,000,000 women, every age, every race, but I don't know. It's like she's not quite real." Khalil opened a satchel full of cash. "How much for her? I'll pay a fortune." "Look, I'm serious, Khalil. Not for sale." "Son of a dog! You are trying to drive up the price." "Stop. I'm not negotiating. You can't have her at any price. Look, this may sound crazy, but I think I may be falling in love for the first time in my life. And what's more, I think that she is falling in love with me, Khalil." They stared through the rain-streaked windows as Anne threw her arms around Mike and they kissed. Khalil roared with laughter. "In love with you, eh? And now she is sharing that joyous news of love with her friend, no?" Max glowered at the sight of Anne and Michael embracing. "Prick, hack writer. What's he got that I don't?" Khalil stared enviously. "He is a lucky man. For the next 2 days, at least." Max turned and wondered what his partner in crime was up to. "What are you talking about?" "She will be on my plane tomorrow night. I will have many beautiful new women for my harem, but she will be my new bride." Suddenly there was a knock on the limo window, and they both turned quickly. It was Anne, breathless and beaming. "Max, thank you for everything. It was a lovely funeral, but I'm going home with Michael now. Goodbye." She pecked him on the cheek and hurried back to Mike. He put his arms around Anne, and they walked to his car. Khalil knocked on his window, and a servant appeared from nowhere, standing in the rain. Khalil rolled his window down and said something in a foreign tongue to the man, who nodded and darted off. But Max was fuming. "I'm telling you, don't touch her, Khalil. She's mine. Oh, I know what you're thinking, but how hard can it be for me to win her back or steal her away from that little creep hack writer whose soul I own, thank you?" Max forced himself to stop staring at the sight of Anne in Mike's arms, and he looked down at the contents of his briefcase. "So, my friend, do you want the rest of the merchandise or not?" "Of course," said Khalil, smiling broadly and gesturing grandly as he poured himself some chivas from the limo bar. "After all, my friend, you know my motto. Why should a man choose among women when he does not have to?" Max got out of the limo and returned to his own. He purposely ignored the sight of Mike and Anne nuzzling as they drove off in Mike's car. In fact, So involved were Mike and Anne in their canoodling, they did not notice that they were being followed by some of the swarthy man's henchmen. And, so caught up were all of them with their little dramas that none of them noticed the rainstorm had suddenly stopped and given way to a spectacular rainbow. The only person left at the cemetery was an old grave digger who started heaping dirt on the grave. And that old grave digger looked exactly like Silas Crenshaw himself, I must tell you. He watched the cars driving slowly in a long line out of the cemetery. Then he started whistling an old spiritual as he shoveled dirt on the coffin. But switch gears. Turn up the volume on the love song in your soul. It is time for one of those good old-fashioned, syrupy, sweet, romantic movie-type montages. You know the kind. The kind that's so trite, so cliché, yet always so satisfying in a vicarious sort of way. Well, what can I tell you? Good old Mike had decided to accept the miracle. He didn't understand how his dear fantasy Anne had suddenly become flesh and blood, but he did not care. Not anymore. He had learned his lesson. He decided it was time to show Anne the 20th century. Oh, he couldn't do it with as much cash as Max, but he had more panache, and that counts for something. Oh, but one very important aside. So immersed were Anne and Mike in each other that they did not notice the band of swarthy men trailing them the whole time. No, but for now, let's just have fun. First, Mike took Anne to the carnival. The rides terrified her, and she clung to him, and he loved it. She squealed with delight when Mike won her a huge teddy bear. She loved the bumper cars, quickly getting the knack and ramming Mike several times. Oh, aside number 2, this a very funny one. The swarthy band of men each took a bumper car and were visibly enraged, mouthing epithets in some foreign tongue as Anne rammed them, laughing, blissfully aware of who they were. And the House of Mirrors made Anne hysterical with laughter. Once again, the swarthy men followed them in, trying to nab Anne, but losing them in all the reflections. Anne liked hot dogs with the works, but her true love was cotton candy. Mike watched with delight as she stuck out her tongue and let the blue and pink sugar melt in her mouth. And when they were done with the carnival, Mike had the wonderful inspiration to take Anne ballooning. Again she clung to him, watching with delight as the horses far below them galloped across the rolling fields. Joggers down below, they confused her. She wanted to know what they were running from. Mike did not know. She was fascinated by the teeny-tiny cars crawling along the highway like ants, as, back down on Earth in one of those teeny-tiny cars, the swarthy men were frantically following the balloon, pointing up and jabbering. Ooh, Mike took Anne shopping for a bikini. She was too embarrassed to come out of the dressing room. She couldn't believe 20th century women actually dressed this way in public. The clerk and Mike had a hard time wooing her out of that dressing room, and when she did emerge shyly to display her bikini, Mike's heart stopped. She was a knockout. The band of swarthy men peeked in the shop window, equally awestruck. Then Mike tried to teach Anne how to water ski. She kept falling on her face. Then he showed her. She got the knack. She thought it was amazing. The swarthy men watched through binoculars from the beach, leering and drooling. Then Mike took Anne to a mall where the trivial amusements that we take for granted were all mysteries and miracles to funny little Anne. The sounds and sights in the video arcade intrigued her. He showed her how to use a video game, guiding her hands as she zapped alien spaceships. They went to a movie. Popcorn and jujubes fascinated her, but the movie, a slasher film, terrified her and she hid under the seat. Then she jumped up and ran out of the theater. Mike hurried after, trying to explain that it's not real. They walked on through the mall, and she calmed down, chuckling at the sight of the spandex-clad women in the window of the bright new shiny workout emporium aerobicizing. But just as quickly, Anne was near tears at the sight of the puppies in the pet store, crying to get out of their little prisons. Their big sad eyes went straight to her heart, and so, when Mike was distracted, she opened all the cages. Store clerks screamed and puppies darted everywhere, much to the delight of children. Mike managed to lead Anne into the crowd of shoppers and get lost just as security came running. Oh, note, the swarthy men found themselves caught in the pandemonium. "Son of a dog!" screamed one of them as the puppy attacked his leg. Safely extricated from this jam, they ambled casually, passing a very chic, trendy beauty shop. Anne was fascinated at the women having their hair styled and cut into short, sassy bobs, but Mike shook his head firmly no, then pulled her close. He'd given in to her every whim, but no, not this one. As Mike kissed her, he ran his fingers through her long, thick chestnut hair, and he was still running his fingers through her long, thick chestnut hair as they sat in his bathtub, surrounded by candles. Soft music played, flower petals floated around, they sipped jasmine tea. He kissed her, and she settled back into his arms, leaning against his strong chest. And he was still running his fingers through her hair as they make gentle love under the full moon, then fell asleep under a cozy quilt. After Mike heard Anne's breathing was deep and steady, he opened his eyes, careful not to wake her, and tiptoed into his bedroom, sat down at his computer smiling. "Oh, my dear Anne, I've got to reunite the lovers in the past. I can't waste any more time." Mike booted up the computer and quickly skimmed what he had written. He chuckled and winced alternately as he reviewed and remembered his machinations. The near death of the tailor, the wedding to the Duke. That seemed like a dozen moons ago. Mike smiled as he looked over and saw Anne sleeping peacefully. "Oh, Anne, thank God you're a sound sleeper. You'd be so upset if you read what I'm about to write, but trust me, it's for a good cause. As Hamlet said, there's a method to my madness." Okay, where was I? The Duke's evil scheme. Ah, yes, okay. A dark and stormy night. Oh, no, wait, no, I can't say that. That's so trite. Oh, what the hell. A dark and stormy night, the tailor's cottage. The tailor had sorely missed his dear daughter Anne, who is now ensconced in a palatial estate across the channel. He was still bristling a bit from not being invited along, but he knew that his daughter would see he was tended to in his old age. The poor lonely tailor had taken to filling the long nights gambling and guzzling with friends, among them the fat red-bearded merchant that Anne's father had tried to set up with Anne. And as this drunken band of men play their endless rounds of poker, they do not notice two heads pop up at the window. It is the Duke's henchmen spying on the men. The henchmen wait patiently in the thunderstorm, and wait, until finally Anne's father says goodnight and lumbers up the stairs to bed. And yet still the henchmen wait some more, until they know the poor old fat tailor is sleeping soundly. And then the Duke's henchmen steal into his bedroom and stab the sleeping man to death as he snores. There is a chilling death rattle as he drowns in his own blood. The henchmen pinch some of his valuables before stealing away into the black stormy night to make it look like a robbery. Oh, and this is important. One of the henchmen, when rifling through a box of the tailor's most prized possessions, remembers his orders from the Duke and makes certain to find Anne's mother's ruby ring and tuck it away. And oh, so nearby, unaware of this horrible business, poor lonely Michael sleeps in the barn up in the hayloft, and sleeps and sleeps. He had drunk much the night before, trying to drown out the thought of his poor lost Anne, and his sleep is like a stupor. When suddenly Michael is rudely grabbed by the king's guards. Michael looks around, sleepy, startled, and screams when he sees his own clothes blood-soaked. One of the guards opens a saddlebag lying next to Michael's bed. It contains the tailor's valuables. The guards drag Michael away, ignoring his protests. And at that same time in France, the docks, a salty morning, Anne is overcome with excitement as the Duke's ship sets sail to take her back to England. She turns to Stephen, her servant. "Stephen, 2 more days and I'll be with my dearest Michael and we'll be married. Oh, I love him so." Meanwhile, in the Duke's chambers, the servant Jane comes running to see why the Duke has called for her. He grins wickedly when she scurries into the room. "Jane, my dove, there is something I wish you to do for me." She smiles compliantly and drops to her knees in front of him. "No, Jane, not that," he says, pulling her back up. "Something else. I wish you to carry a message to England, but you must speed like the wind, my dear." Meanwhile, back in the present, Mike the writer was loving this. He slapped his thigh and howled in delight. Oh, this is good. This is very good. Okay, the ship taking Anne back to England was not out of port one day before it was overtaken by pirates. Oh, this is good. Pirates. The legendary, ferocious, name. One-Eyed Willie. Yeah. Just moments before the dire deed transpired, the fair Anne had been sitting alone in her cabin on the ship, singing, nay, warbling English madrigals, dreaming of Michael and combing out her long hair and... Yeah, right. Reality check. The fair Anne is so seasick, wearing only her corset and bloomers, she grabs the chamber pot, leans over it, and vomits loudly. She wipes her mouth, wincing as she feels another bout coming on. Won't this blasted boat ever stop rocking? And then, at that moment, he bursts in. The door to Anne's cabin opens, and One-Eyed Willie the pirate is standing triumphantly in her doorway. Anne screams, but he just smiles as he eyes her scantily clad, buxom form. Oh, did I mention that One-Eyed Willie happens to bear an uncanny resemblance to the swarthy man, Max, his partner in crime, from Michael's present? Mike, who even at this moment was clattering away on the keyboard in a lather. Oh, let's see. On that wild ocean, the battle still waged between the sailors and the pirates for control of the Duke's ship, as down below, poor Anne cowered, terrified that her life would be snuffed out before she could once again set eyes on her beloved Michael. Well, what Mike the writer doesn't need to know, but just between you and me, is that's not quite how it is unfolding. Anne, you remember, is not one to toy with. Still holding her piss pot, she screams at One-Eyed Willie as he stands there in the doorway leering. You pig! How dare you burst in here? Who are you, one of the sailors? I will have the captain flog you for this. Oh, no. I am One-Eyed Willie, and I'm no mere lowly toady to your captain. I am the most dreaded pirate on the high seas. Mike was typing at breakneck speed and begged for mercy as One-Eyed Willie came closer and closer, and screamed, kicked and punched as Willie threw her over his shoulder. Let me down, you heathen, or you are as good as dead. She's a feisty wench. I like 'em with some fire in 'em. And with a slap to her rump, Willie carried her away to his cabin as Anne struggled and yelled for help. Why don't I just knee him in the balls? Huh? Mike, the writer, nearly jumped out of his skin and whirled around, startled to see that Anne, his dear Anne of the present, his present from the past, had awakened from her sweet sleep and was reading over Mike's shoulder. Anne, don't sneak up on me. You scared me to death. Anne, incredibly sexy, wearing only Mike's shirt, squinted at the screen. Why do you have me running around like a mouse chased by a cat in your silly story? Why don't I give him one in the jewels? Well, because he's not at... And can we talk about this later? Did you sleep well, my love? No, I do not like waking up alone, Michael, without you here. Never again, Anne. I promise. And now, enough writing. I am going to make us a feast. Breakfast in bed. Best meal you ever had. Salmon and cream cheese omelets, almond croissant, espresso, passion fruit nectar, and a bowl of strawberries. Does that sound good? Well, I don't know what any of that is except the strawberries, but I trust you to take care of me, Michael. Tell me we'll never be apart again. Never again. God, I adore you. Now I know why I could never fall in love before. I know it sounds corny, but I've been saving myself for you. Well, Michael, that's sweet, but could you hurry with the food? I'm starving. Anne, don't you ever get tired of eating? She crossed her arms, a saucy look on her face, and spoke. Anne had a voracious appetite for all things, life, love, wine, food, sex, God, and the devilish. Page 53, after the description of my early tutoring. I don't believe it. You're quoting my book to me. Well, at least someone's reading it. He grabbed his keys. I'm hurrying to the store. I'll be back in 10 minutes. He took the stairs 2 at a time. Oh, I love her. Thank you, God. Thank you, Silas. I don't get it, but I'm not asking any more questions. As back in the apartment, Anne yawned and sauntered to the kitchen to get coffee. She blushed when she remembered their night of passion. Then she ambled to the bedroom, everything reminding her of Michael. She looked through a notebook with his newspaper stories pasted in and read them fascinated. Then she took the pages of his novel from the printer and started to read, lazily sipping her coffee. In which Anne and the Duke are hastily married? And so poor Anne had agreed to marry the Duke? She cried at night when she thought of his two-pointed chin, his leering eyes, his red, wet lips, and his foul breath, but she had agreed, and there was nothing to do but go through with it. The Duke had arranged a hasty ceremony before Anne could change her mind, and all the while the Duke imagined what their honeymoon would be like, the thought of finally being able to touch those milk-white breasts. Well, back in the present, Anne drew back in horror as she read of her own fate in the novel. This can't be right. Why on earth would Michael want me to marry the Duke? No, there must be some mistake. Horrified, Anne read on. The dreaded honeymoon. The Duke was quite drunk by the time he got to the bridal chamber. Anne cowered in the corner, sickened by the thought of what it would be like to feel his foul breath on her face, his fat pink tongue in her mouth, his hands stripping her, touching her everywhere, groaning and grunting as he entered her. Anne, in the present, was so startled she spit coffee. Oh, no, what on earth can Michael be thinking? That's disgusting. And then she ran out of pages. In a frantic lather, she sat down at his desk, put her hand on the mouse, and quickly figured out how to scroll as she had watched Michael. And then, oh no, she stumbled upon it. It was graphic, horrifying, bloody. In which Anne's father is foully murdered. The poor old tailor, drunk from his long night of gambling and guzzling, wheezed and floundered his way up the stairs to his little alcove, his hangover setting in even as he slept. When he snored, the bed shook, the floor shook, the house shook. So powerful was his snoring that it drowned out completely the sound of the 2 murderers, the Duke's henchmen, creeping up the stairs to the 2nd floor. But suddenly their knives came out of their sheaths, glistening as they caught the moonlight filtering through the window. They stabbed him again and again, his blood-curdling screams heard by no one save the hoot owls and the titmice that infested the old barn by the house. Blood spurted everywhere, and he gave one last agonized death rattle as he choked in his own blood. He shuddered and twitched. When the men were sure he was dead, they slipped out as quickly as they had come and disappeared into the black night. In the present, Anne froze, still clutching her coffee cup as she stared at the screen in disbelief. And listen carefully, for such is the power of the human mind. So brain-bending was Anne's horror, so completely did the grisly moment permeate her timeless soul, that suddenly, still wearing Michael's shirt and still clutching the coffee cup, she found herself standing by her father the tailor's bed in their little cottage on a dark and stormy night. Trembling, Anne stared at the blood-soaked blanket and the form underneath. She looked around, trying to grasp where she was. In a heartbeat, she had suddenly found herself thrust back hundreds of years, to a moment that had never existed in the first place. But to Anne, this nightmare was as real as if it had really happened, for in her universe it had happened. The dead form under the blanket twitched one last time before spasming into complete death, and Anne dropped the coffee cup, and it shattered in Mike's room in the present, splashing coffee on Mike's computer. Anne was hysterical. When suddenly the front door burst open and Mike ran in. He dropped his groceries and hurried to the bedroom to see who was accosting his Anne. She stopped screaming when she saw him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Bastard! Son of a bitch! Anne, I thought somebody was... Why are you... How dare you, Michael? You said you loved me. You promised you would keep me safe and happy or die trying." "Anne, calm down. You're hysterical." "You murdered my father. Don't deny it. I read everything." And suddenly Mike laughed, much relieved. "Oh, I get it. You decided to do a little light reading while I was gone." "Monster! You killed him in cold blood." "No, honey, Anne, you don't understand. First of all, it's only words. It's just a story. He's not real. Not real? But isn't that what you said about me? And am I real? Well, am I not? No, Anne, it's not the same thing. I mean, it's not... Anne, you didn't read far enough. I read far enough to see my father cruelly murdered by heathens. And who the hell is this Duke? And how could you make me marry him and suffer that... Oh, it's too awful! And then in a rage she picked up the computer and smashed it against the wall. With a spark and a crash, it shattered, cracked, and went dark. Mike stared horrified. That's it, young lady. Mike ran after Anne as she started throwing the groceries that had landed on the living room floor at him. An apple, lettuce, bag of chips. She pummeled him with a loaf of French bread. A jar of caviar hit the wall, shattered, and left a slime of black goo. Mike yowled in exasperation. Damn it, Anne! Stop! If you'd let me explain! She hit him on the head with a can of Italian tomatoes, and then, dressed only in his shirt, ran out the door. She flew down the stairs and hid in the laundry room. Mike hurried out into the street, calling for her. Down in the laundry room, Anne sat in the corner and sobbed. After a moment she dried her eyes and looked around. Beside her was a laundry basket of clothes. She found jeans and a flannel shirt and threw them on. The pants were huge on her. She looked around, found a piece of twine, used that for a belt. She rolled the cuffs up. Barefoot, her hair a mess and her eyes red, she peered out the laundry room door. Michael was nowhere about. She snuck out. Anne charged out of the building, and oh, yes, the band of swarthy men, still casing Mike's building from their car, waiting for their chance to nab her, saw Anne alone for the first time. Meanwhile, nearby, Mike was stopping strangers, asking if they'd seen Anne, as other folks on the street stared at Anne as she stomped in the other direction. The swarthy men made their way through the crowd towards her. They were almost upon her when Anne arrived just in the nick of time at Max's building. Anne breezed through the lobby just as the cranky lady clerk behind the front desk was leaning down behind the counter. The clerk came up just in time to see the swarthy men trying to follow Anne, who had ducked into an elevator. The clerk came running around from behind her desk, bellowing, "Hey! Stop! Stop! You can't just breeze in here!" They muttered to her. She buzzed for security guards who came running and stopped the swarthy men, physically throwing them into the street. Much profanity all around. And meanwhile, on the very top floor of that luxury apartment building, the elevator door opened and Anne got out. She hurried to Max's door and knocked. But oh, ho, ho, ho. On the other side of that door, Max and a sleazy film crew were shooting a blue movie. Women in sexy lingerie surrounded a young man. The knock at the door didn't faze them. Max pulled out his wallet. "That's the pizzas, Wayne. Here's a 50, pay him. Let's not lose the momentum. Tiffany, you were about to—" Wayne returned with the 50. "Boss man, it's, not the pizza, it's some chick. I told you we're not hiring anymore. Take her name—" "No, boss, it's not that kind of girl. She asked for you specifically. Maximilian, she said. Says her name's Anne." "Anne?" Suddenly Max panicked and looked at the pornographic trappings all around him. "Geez, nobody move. Be quiet. I'll be right back." Max ran to the front door and opened it a crack. Anne stood there in her ratty old stolen clothes, barefoot, shyly looking at him, her face tear-streaked. "Anne, how lovely you look. I didn't expect you." "I'm sorry. I guess I've come at a bad time." "No, this is perfect time. I mean, any time would be perfect. Wait, don't move. I'll be right back." And then Max stepped outside in the hallway and looked at her more closely. "But, Anne, you've been crying." She sniffled into his arms. "I shouldn't have come. I'll leave." "No, I won't allow it. Come with me." Max pulled her into his study and shut the door before she could see what was happening in the room down the hall. He sat her in his big leather chair and kneeled down. "My friends were just leaving. Now, I want you to sit here while I show them out, and please don't move." Then Max ran into the room where the shooting was going on. One woman was getting quietly stoned, another chugging from a bottle of wine. Max was flustered, a rare event. "Now, I want everybody out. Something very important has come up. Get dressed. Clear out." A scantily clad girl flounced up. Hey, you hired us for the full day. All right already. Wayne, take the girls to the cabin at Hunter's Hill. Finish the shoot there. But Wayne looked at Max dimly. But, boss, what about continuity? I mean, it's not the same ambiance. You got the woodsy lighting. Max scowled at his underling. Just do it! Max started packing things himself, throwing robes at the girls and yelling for them to dress. Within 2 minutes, the whole cast and crew were on their way out the door. Hurry! We're still on deadline, you know. We've got to wrap the film by tonight. Boss, man, you mind giving me directions? Max looked nervously at the closed study door, then at Wayne. I'll meet you downstairs in a minute. Max shut the front door behind them and ran back into the study and stopped for a moment, transfixed as he always was by Anne's pure beauty. Well, my darling, the party is gone and we're alone. Oh, I'm sorry. I've ruined everything. Oh, Max, you're so sweet to me. Listen, I must run downstairs for just a minute, but I promise after I come back I won't leave your side. I have something special to ask you. 1 minute. He hurried out the front door again and bolted down the hall. He jumped in the elevator, and when it stopped on the first floor, he hurried through the lobby. The clerk was getting very annoyed with all these strange characters dashing through her lobby.
Mr. Bouchard! Mr. Bouchard, listen to me. There were just a bunch of movie people trooping through here and some women who looked extremely—
Not now, Miss Harcourt. Max dashed through the front doors and out into the street where Wayne was packing the equipment. Okay, Wayne, listen. Get on Route 43 for about 20 miles, then turn on Potter's Road. As Max was leaning into the limo, he did not see that just across the street, Mike screeched up in his car, looking for Anne. Mike also did not see Max. The band of swarthy men, still trying to get back in, were about to have a fist fight with the security guards. The clerk came running out.
I thought I told you foreigners to get out of here. I'm going to call the police.
Mike took advantage of the squabble and slipped into the building unseen. The elevator doors opened on Max's floor, and Mike jogged down the hall to his apartment. He knocked loudly. Mr. Bouchard! Mr. Bouchard, it's Mike McClure. Is Anne there? Anne? Meanwhile, inside, pacing the living room, Anne heard Mike's voice and froze. She was still furious with him for murdering her father. The door was not shut all the way from Max's hasty departure, and Mike opened it a crack. Mr. Bouchard, did you know your door's unlocked? Anne darted in the coat closet and noiselessly pulled the door shut just as Mike was stepping into the apartment. Mike poked his head around. Sir? Is anyone here? Curious, he explored around and stopped when he got to the room where they had been filming. Cassettes were lying around, along with extension cords, tripods. Mike picked up a G-string. He saw more miscellaneous shoved onto the sofa. Oh, my golly. The man makes porno films. Mike saw a video cassette storage drawer and opened it. Dirty movie titles scrawled on rows of tapes. His reporter instincts came to the fore. He opened more drawers and found glossies of girls in various stages of nudity. Most of the girls looked very young. Wow! They've got to be underage. Just how deep in is our Mr. Bouchard? Suddenly, Mike heard footsteps outside the apartment, and then he, too, ducked into the closet, not noticing Anne, who was already in there, crouching behind coats. She gasped when she saw it was Mike, but the sound of Max coming in the front door opening covered her gasp, and Mike had no idea that she was in the closet, too. "Anne!" shouted Max. "Anne, dear!" Back in the closet, Anne and Mike, still unaware of each other, could hear Max storming around. God, that girl is elusive. Then suddenly Anne and Mike could hear another voice. Wayne had returned and was confabbing with Max. Sorry, boss, but the chicks said it won't go to the cabin to finish unless they get cash from you first. Okay, I've got it with me, Wayne, no problem. I'll go down to the car with you and give it to them personally. But say, is Anne down there? Max and Wayne hurried towards the elevator. No, boss, she's not. I thought she was here with you. Did you say you're going with us to the cabin? No, you idiot. I'm going with you downstairs. You'll need my pass card to get the limo out of the garage. Now, where the hell did that girl disappear to? Back in Max's apartment, Mike, who still hadn't seen Anne, stepped out cautiously, then peeked down the hallway and saw the elevator doors closing. When the coast was clear, he hurried down the hallway and took the fire stairs. Meanwhile, back in Max's apartment, Anne stepped out of the coat closet just as the penthouse door opened. It was Max. He beamed when he saw her. "Anne, there you are, my dearest. I looked everywhere." But Anne was frantic. "Max, Mike was just here." "Damn! Did you let him in? Does he know you're here?" "No, he doesn't know I'm here, but thank God. I need a drink. Would you like a drink?" Anne was trying to get a word in edgewise. "But Max, he was—" But Max was not listening. He went to the bar. "Oh, I need a belt. That's the ticket. Scotch. A double." Meanwhile, downstairs, Mike saw the garage door to the building open and the limo drive out. He assumed that Max and Anne were in the car. He jumped in his car, pulled out into traffic, and started to follow it. As, back in Max's apartment, Max sat down on the sofa next to Anne, he took her hands in his. "Anne, remember I said I had something to ask you? Listen, tonight is the dedication party for my building. It's an entire publishing empire in one self-contained palace. I've dreamed about this for years, and this is my night, Anne, and I want you by my side. Will you go with me?" But then Max saw the look on her face. "Oh, Anne, no, don't tell me you're going with your cousin, Buzz." "No, no, in fact, I have nothing to say to him. If I never see him again, it will be fine with me." Max beamed. "Great, you're better off without him. But you haven't given me an answer, my dear. It's a costume party, with kings and queens and knights and vampires and mermaids." These oh-so-familiar images made Anne's face light up, and she clapped her hands in delight. "Oh, it sounds lovely. Yes, I will go with you." "Magnificent! But we must hurry. I have to pick up my costume, and we must find something magnificent for you, my pet." And while they headed out in search of the most magnificent costume in the city, the Blue movie crew had arrived at Max's cabin in the country and were quickly setting up to resume their shoot. But they were not alone. Noiseless as a Shawnee, Mike skulked around outside. He peeked in windows, saw nothing. He stared up at the windows on the second floor and formulated a plan. Meanwhile, at an elaborate costume shop, Max watched in amusement as Anne tried on costumes. She came out of the fitting room dressed as a chicken. Max laughed, shook his head no. She came out dressed as Little Bo Peep. Max's eyebrows raised. The bodice pushed her breasts up, very sexy, but not quite. He shook his head no. Back at the cabin in the woods, Mike had stacked up crates, a bench, kerosene can. He climbed up the precarious stack, then peeked in the window. A lurid sex scene was going on. Jesus! But where's Max and Anne? Wow! I could destroy Bouchard with this, that lech. I could topple his whole empire. But I need proof, evidence, pictures. Damn it, the camera's in the car. And as Michael was climbing down, the stack of oddments collapsed with a tremendous clatter, and he tumbled to the ground. His mouth opened in a silent scream. Then he quickly limped into the woods. The boxes and cans were scattered about again, carelessly, just as they had been before. Two hulks with guns came outside and looked around. Hulk number 1 squinted into the woods. "What do you think?" Hulk number 2 shrugged. "Raccoon or a bear." Hulk number 1 made a nervous look. "Really, you think a bear? A real bear? I don't like bears so much." Hulk number 2 shrugged again, his signature move, apparently. "Come on, let's go back in. I want to see the end of that scene. That Rhonda's got the biggest jugs I ever saw." As meanwhile, back at the costume shop, Anne came out dressed as a box of Cracker Jack. Max shook his head no. A mermaid. She had to hop because her legs were wedged together into a giant tail. Max thought about it. No. And whizzing by that same costume shop on the main drag through the city, Mike hurried by in his car, not knowing that he had just passed by his dear Anne, so close and yet so far. He winced and felt his skull. He'd been cut in that topple he'd taken. He ignored it, though, and pressed on. He parked outside of Max's building and jumped out. He peered in the building and saw the clerk and the security guards at their posts. Then Mike saw a delivery boy whizzing down the street on a skateboard holding a stack of hot pizzas. Mike grabbed one and hurried in the building. Inside Max's building, the clerk eyed Mike suspiciously. Mike flashed a winning smile.
Pizza for Mr. Bouchard in the penthouse.
Mike dashed in the elevator before she could stop him. It opened on Max's floor. Mike ran down the hall and pounded on Max's door.
Anne.
Max, are you in there? Max, I know all about your little operation. Now open this door. He shook the knob. Nobody answered. Anne, if you're in there, open the door. God, oh, it's like she's dropped off the face of the earth. Mike paid no attention to the slow old janitor vacuuming. Suddenly the man looked up, a twinkle in his eye. Mike glanced over at him, then did a double-take. The old man looked exactly like Silas Crenshaw. Silas? Excuse me, sir. May I sweep where you're standing? I'm sorry. I thought you were someone else. You know, if I was looking for someone that disappeared, I'd go back to where I met him in the first place. Yeah, well, thanks, but wait, do you mean... The janitor stopped vacuuming and stared at Mike, giving him an all-knowing smile. Then he spoke more pointedly this time. Are you listening, son? I said if someone I cared about got lost, I'd go to the place where I met them in the first place. Mike smiled, finally getting it. Yes, in the first place, the book. Oh, no, when I left Anne, she was kidnapped by pirates. They could have... Oh, God, I have to save her. And with that, Mike hurried to the elevator, then glanced back at the old janitor. Mike remembered the pizza under his arm and gave it to him. The janitor chuckled and winked him good luck. The costume shop. Max studied his manicure, then glanced up when he heard Anne coming out of the dressing room. He smiled broadly. Ah, yes, that shall be your costume. Meanwhile, back at Mike's apartment, Mike hurried in and ran to his study to start writing again, to take up where he had left off. Then he saw the computer and remembered. It was still on the floor where Anne had heaved it, the screen glass scattered all over the floor. Damn it! Oh, wait, my computer at the office. Of course, I'll go there. Mike was on his way out, then stopped. He heard an odd sound. Lancelot pushing his dog bowl around the kitchen, dropping hints. Oh, God, Lancelot, I am so sorry. I forgot again. Mike ran to the pantry. Lancelot studied his master's frenzied search with great concern. Mike opened the freezer and pulled out a handful of frozen dinners. He jammed them in the microwave. In a few seconds, the buzzer buzzed. Mike yanked them out, ripped the paper tops off, set the dinners on the floor, and hurried out the door. Lancelot just stared at the door. Mike ran back in, opened the fridge, poured some ketchup on the TV dinners, and dashed out again. The new newspaper building. It was exquisite, a skyscraper of blue-green glass, the interior filled with marble, mirrors, pricey artwork. Mike didn't even notice the catering truck that had just arrived to set up for the big party. Mike had completely forgotten about the big party. I mean, criminy, he had a damsel in distress to rescue. He took the elevator to the newsroom and hurried to his desk. He booted up his computer, slipped in the disk. His fingers started flying across the keys. And before you can say the time machine, Mike was sitting in prison. A nasty dungeon is more like it. Michael sits in a dark, dank cell, awaiting his execution for the bloody murder of the tailor. Michael has given up all hope. He does not even notice or care when a large gray rat runs across his foot. He stands wearily and paces. What does it matter if I am in prison, if I do not have her? What does it matter if my head is severed from my body and mounted on London Bridge for the crows to peck out my eyes? What does it matter if I'm drawn and quartered, if I'm stretched on the rack, or if my skin is flayed from my bones, for torture and death cannot be worse than a life without my darling Anne. He pounds his fist against the wooden cot and winces. Damn! Another splinter! And then suddenly there is a burst of sunlight as the prison door opens and Jane, the Duke's servant Jane, dressed in her finest, makes her way through the corridor. Her flirtatious ways easily persuade the guards. Michael hurries to the bars. Jane whispers conspiratorially with him. "Sir, I come as a messenger from the Lady Anne, wife of the Duc d'Orléans." Michael's face lights up. Jane slips him a letter. "She wished you to have this letter and its contents, but I must go, lest the guards grow curious." She bustles away through the dark corridor. Michael rips open the letter, and a ring falls out. It is the gold band with the ruby that Anne's father gave to Anne's mother on their wedding day. Michael reads the letter excitedly. "My dearest Michael, I do not know if or when we will ever see each other again, and even if fate should reunite us, I do not know if you are still angry and hurt over my marriage to the Duke, but if there is some chance you still care, be wearing this ring when next you see me, and I will know you have forgiven me. Your darling Anne." Michael claps his hands to his breast and gazes heavenward, even though all he can really see is the low ceiling and the foul graffiti of former prisoners. "Oh, saints be praised, Anne still loves me. What a happy day is this!" And then Michael has a further blissful revelation. Wait! They have accused me of murdering the tailor, and tragic though that is, for I came to love that man as a father. But if he really is dead, then the king can do no worse to that poor tailor for the embarrassment during the parade. And that means that the Duke no longer has any hold over Anne. We can be together again. Oh, I must get to her. I must escape. Well, Mike, the writer, was smiling broadly as he clattered away, more slowly on this new, different keyboard he was not as comfortable with as his one at home, that Anne had destroyed in one of Anne's fits of temper, and thinking of Anne in the present, who was God knows where with Max doing God knows what, made my... I can't think of that now, he said, trying to focus on the computer. I've got to rescue Anne in the past from those pirates, and then, darn it, I'll deal with the present when it comes, whenever. I've got to focus. Okay. For long hours into the night, Michael sat in prison and racked his brain, wondering how he might slip his surly bonds. For a timeless time he plotted his escape. It was a plan that would take all his wits, all his courage, all his strength. The diabolical cunning of a man in love. Yeah, well, between you and me, the truth is, it was not all that heroic, cunning, or dramatic. Basically, Michael just sat in the cell, waited till he heard the ancient wheezing guard bring his tin plate of slop for dinner, and when the guard, shaking from his palsy, reached through the bars of the cell to give Michael the plate, clever Michael grabbed the old fart's wrists, pulled them forward through the bars, banging the guard's head really hard against the bars, and Michael stole the guard's keys and escaped. Whatever. At least the poor groom was free to rescue his lady love. Michael knew that he must make his way to France as quickly as possible. There wasn't a moment to lose. He mounted a strong, noble steed and flew like the wind towards Dover. Or, well, once again, between you and me. Because, you see, at this point, Mike, the writer, was losing so much control over his story. His characters were so completely living their own reality, which is a good thing in the long run, by the way. That Mike, the writer's prose, was not the reality of the fiction at all. The reality was this. Yes, Michael was more determined than ever to free Anne of the Duke's evil clutches, and that there wasn't a moment to lose, that was true enough, but Michael the groom is broke, and all he can get for his trip to France is an old sway-back nag. Michael mounts it, and the nag just stands totally still as Michael kicks him to get him to move. The nag takes a few slow, sickly steps. And then our hero consigned a noble vessel to cross the English Channel. Okay, he hid in a barrel of potatoes so he can sneak onto a barge. He lost not a second, for he knew that at this very moment his dear Anne was in mortal danger. Not exactly. Anne, on the ship taken over by pirates, is still in her corset and bloomers. She swills rum with the pirates and plays gin rummy with them, winning all their doubloons. Okay, so perhaps she cheats a little, and perhaps they let her cheat because she is so cute. They are pleased to find her a personable wench instead of a whimpering simp like so many of the ladies they kidnap. And meanwhile, on a road in France, Michael gallops past a sign, Orléans, 5 kilometers. He hurries up to a soldier. "Sir, I'm looking for the estate of the Duc d'Orléans." Down this road 10 kilometers, but he is not at home. He is at the docks readying to sail. His wife was kidnapped by pirates. And so the Duke is risking life and limb to rescue her. And, my friend, if you had seen the Duke's wife, you would know why. But Michael is struck dumb with horror. My darling Anne in the clutches of pirates. Oh, God, which way are the docks? Down that road. You'll smell them when you get close.